let's do some quick introductions. Tell the people who you are.
All right, I'm Vivi Wanderley-Britt. I am a media director of the planning team at GSD&M. GSD&M is a local agency. We're part of Omnicom. We are a full-service agency. We handle Southwest on the creative side. We also have Stanley, Corona on the creative side, and we also have a few accounts that we have media and creative, so very much integrated. I manage a retailer account, which I cannot speak about, but we also have Fruit of the Loom, MD Anderson, Mateo Salsa, and U.S. Air Force as on the media side and creative side.
Hi, good morning. My name is Melissa Sierra. I'm the EVP Media Integration. I oversee planning, activation, analytics, and the holistic view of that for the agency. We're an independent media planning and buying agency across the U.S. That we're proud to oversee brands like Visit Philadelphia, Crunch Fitness, Cafe Rio, Potbelly, Logan's Roadhouse, many brands that are challengers to the category that represent the retail, fast casual, travel, as well as CPG space. And what Vivi failed to mention is that we have a very big sweet tooth, and we would love to try the Rolo's brownies this holiday season. And we also love to wear vests for our panel.
Oh, yeah. That's Erin.
How do we have MediaPost as an affiliate code so we can start tracking how many sales of all the brands we individually are driving at this conference? So I introduced it a little bit, right? There's so many different trends and channels that are appearing in the video landscape. What's the one that you guys have adopted most recently or are most excited about for your clients?
Ooh, you know, I love the pause ads. I think we heard from in our panel in one of the roundtables yesterday that Keurig is actually taking great advantage and being very thoughtful with their execution. They're actually allowing you to excuse yourself to go get a cup of coffee when you pause that. I thought that was a very good use of the environment. I think, you know, more and more, the more we can be thoughtful and purposeful with our creative and really understanding the environment, so it's just not another ad, I think the more we'll hook the consumer into it. And that is something that we at GSD&M, we've been talking about, right? Like the Fruit of the Loom team has been meeting the creative team strategy and media. They have been meeting for, I would say, a month and a half every day on new ideas for next year. How do we make sure that what we are creating, you know, the creative really resonates with the environment and we get the action that we want from the consumer. So I think, you know, the pause ads is one of the ones that it might be simple, but I'm super excited about just because I think there's an opportunity for us to really get into that living room and not just be, you know, another ad. How can you know, get the consumer to take an action?
Sure.
For us, we've seen some great success with shoppable video for some of our CPG clients, particularly with in-market ads for Mylanta, where we're driving that experience to drive target sales specifically at that point of destination, but specifically within aisle in a very cluttered category for the acid reflux. And we've been able to lift sales by 9.7% when the benchmark is at 2%. And then for Crunch Fitness, we've really dabbled in the holistic video landscape through a ubiquitous experience across addressable cable as well as programmatic OTT by testing into some AI capabilities through Iris TV that has led us to really go frame by frame on a deeper level into contextual segments that also analyzes the sentiment of that consumer that allows us to now commissioning a Dynata survey, see that we've lifted the brand overall by 21%, where other competitors have only lifted the brand 2 to 8%. So it's really amazing how the power of all these different video offerings that are out there in the landscape can, you know, rise everything together.
So with all of the different offerings out there, how do you decide what's worth investing in versus what's just another fad or trend?
Budgets. Budgets, you know.
Okay, fair.
No, budgets, business objectives to understanding. Is this top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel? What is our role? With Fruit of the Loom, for example, it's very much top of the funnel. Yes, we need to drive sales. We work with Walmart to drive sales directly within the retailer, Amazon. But they also have an e-commerce team that is really working on the bottom of the funnel. So for us, it's budget, business objectives, audience. Where is the audience? We dive into the audience. Is the audience really consuming? Is our audience? Because, and I think we talked about a little bit this last week, we all talk about CTV, which is great. Everybody's watching CTV. Well, we dove in, a little deeper into one of our audiences, and we actually found out that based on the audience consumption, which was heavy Hispanic, plus the results from our ROI from previous campaigns, it made sense for us to actually test Hispanic broadcast. So it is really understanding the audience. What are they consuming? Do we have budget to have a broad mix or no? Do we need to narrow down and really, focus on the 2 or 3 channels that the audience is consuming the most? That for us, it's something that we're testing. So we're testing the Spanish broadcast, in addition to having CTV as well as cable for a client. And with other clients, it's very much, if we have budgets, U.S. Air Force is a great client that allows us to have more channels and do more of test and learns strategies. So I think my team is really, audience, budget, business objectives, and we go from there. Some clients will allow us to test new units, some not so much. So, we're usually asking our partners, please give us case studies that are relevant to our clients so they can, be more at ease and be more okay in being the first to test. About you?
No, I agree. I tend to nerd out on things, and I'm very much an old soul, so I like taking the scientific approach to things, stating what the problem is, what's the hypothesis, what is it that we want to prove or not prove. A lot of times our clients would like to say we'd like to test, and then they say we have $2,000 or $5,000, and I don't really know how to scale that over a 6-month period. So in my next life, I'll probably be a lawyer and drill down a little bit more with those questions. But where is this going to provide incremental value? Is it going to lend itself to be a complement to the existing media mix? Is it going to afford another opportunity to create additional white space in a cluttered category? Those are the things that we really look for to be able to test into newer additional opportunities. And the value proposition is not always incremental reach. I think, there's a great amount of solutions that are popping up every single day that are out there, and you can make the business case for any of them in all sorts of situational realities. But I think it becomes a challenge when sometimes partners or solutions don't really understand what the true business challenge is and don't really take the time to think about where the current ecosystem is or do their research in terms of understanding what that media mix is and really provide that sort of way to come in there and provide that solution rather than just, okay, here's where my company is offering you this and how to take advantage of it.
Do you guys set aside like a percent of total budget that you would like to test into for each campaign, or is it not that formulaic?
For us, not unfortunately. We have, because a lot of our clients want to see the reach and frequency and they want to see it up front, so not, but we've been discussing how do we, what is the strategy to actually set aside 5% or even savings, right? Maybe it is savings from negotiations that we can actually put in a test and learn bucket.
Yeah. For us, I like to set aside 10%, at least 15, but that's conditional on if we have the right control and test markets to go into, the right audience segments set aside, budget set aside, as someone said, we don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul, as well as the right creative environments too. I like the A/B testing scenario, and I'm going to stay true to that. I don't like to muddy the waters and start to take a main campaign that's doing really well and start to inflate it with newer metrics and newer shiny objects that we can't get a clean readout from that, because I can't give you the true return on investment that I like to give that perspective on. And so if I'm going to give you an advice to put aside a certain amount of money, I know that you have internal stakeholders that you need to prove that value for. And so I need to be bullish in terms of how we actually give that setting of conditions around the test for.
Melissa, you talked a lot about how it's all relying on the business objectives when you're going into innovative video or emerging channels, right? I asked this about Cindy on Monday. Do you guys feel like you get enough information from your clients about how the business is doing to make those informed decisions?
Not always. That was part of our panel yesterday. Some of our clients, like a CBG client, there's still challenges where the retailers are not giving them the sales data, or they're not getting the right POS data or CRM data that they need. And so we have to either make inferences or rely on third-party resources to be able to make those inferences to, devise that. And that's where we've had many inflection points of developing partnerships with UView, with InMarket, with others that we trust their third-party research. They're MRC accredited, or they have some stake in the ground where we've done some proper vetting with them to be able to infer their value proposition is the right one to make that justification, and then go all in and make those assumptions where we're also gut checking that along the way. But it is a challenge because media objectives sometimes are subjective. What we were talking about this the other day, Vivi and I, what I say is awareness can be completely different to Vivi. If I plan something in an awareness landscape and then she goes to execute it at her agency, how she ends up stewarding that can be completely different. And we both encountered that in our careers, because it's not uncommon that one agency will do one part of a campaign and the other agency will do the other part. So I think it becomes a conversation that is challenging when the right conditions aren't met in terms of understanding how internal stakeholders define KPIs that are translated from those business objectives, the data that's available, how that data is synthesized, where it's all coming in from. Sales and marketing are meeting together, and then how that's equated down, and then how media is actually evaluated too. Because we've also had situations where private equity firms are also included, and our CMOs or our media directors don't know how to translate that in terms of what's going on. How do you translate, call volume is going to have an impact on sales or website volume? So, it gets very convoluted, especially for our challenger brands. But, that's what keeps us in business, and we're grateful for it, but it makes us great.
I was just going to mention something. We went through something similar with one of our clients that the campaign was supposed to be an awareness campaign, but then stakeholders started looking at sales and they go, where are the sales? So we had to, we were like, that was not part of the objective, but then we were able to pivot really quickly, and we were able to make shifts that were able to, we saw the results in the campaign, and then we ended up, asking for more data from them. Can you provide sales data? So we can look at foot traffic, so we can look at proxy. So those are the things that they ended up providing to us at the end that we were able to prove, like you can see the halo effect. Even weeks after the campaign was over, we were able to see frequency drove foot traffic and drove sales, but yes, sometimes stakeholders are asking the questions, and it trickles down to us, and we're like, whoa, wait a minute, that was not the objective. But hey, how can we pivot? Because we want to make sure that our clients look good for their stakeholders.
Clients never change their mind midway through a campaign. What are you guys talking about?
And yet, Vivi and I still have a lot of hair.
Not white. I still don't have a white hair.
All of us in this room, we can sometimes live almost exclusively in the digital world, right? We get so bright-eyed about all of the things that digital video specifically can do, but most of our clients still heavily rely on the physical space, either brick and mortar, right, specifically for retail. How are you guys helping clients merge both digital and their physical space to really break down silos?
That's a tough one. For us, definitely linear is needed for our challenger brands because they need the mass reach, but they need the balance of a data-driven world with CTV, OTT, and a social world where consumers want that relevance. However, you can't ignore that we're in a mobile-first world. So, Vivian and I were joking the other day that when you wake up, the first thing you reach for, even before you say hello to your partner, is your mobile phone, right? And it's a trigger. And while the TV may be on at home, your head is down. Tech neck is a real thing. And that's not to underplay any of the other channels that are at hand, but the reality is that the share of real estate is smaller on that device, and it's in a cluttered environment. And so your brand proposition has to fight a lot harder in that space if you're going to make it to the bigger screen, where media dollars are a lot more competitive, and you're fighting with brands that have larger budgets on both a national and a local scale. And so competition and the reality of that landscape cannot be underestimated, and placement doesn't necessarily trump relevancy, content adjacency, as well as business realities. So it depends on the specific vertical. It depends on where the client is at maturity-wise in terms of their digital savviness, the creative assets that are available, the brand ethos, and the need to drive more awareness and relevancy around the storytelling. So it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all, but I think the ubiquitous storytelling and where the brand positioning within the competitive landscape is really where we start from framing that out.
Yeah, for us and our clients, we look at, if the budget allows, we look at a broader media mix, because based on what you said, it is really, you wake up, you pick up the phone, and then where do you go from there, right? We think of the consumer as a day in a life of a consumer. Where do we need to reach them with relevant message? And do we have the right budgets to have relevant message to reach them in the right environment and right mindset? Because, in a lot of times we're watching TV and we have our phones in our hands. And Stephanie even showed the scans on the QR codes. It might not be a lot, but we're talking about a very passive environment when we're watching TV. The fact that you're actually taking the time to scan a QR code, it means you really want more information. You want to engage with that brand, right? So that's a proxy that I think, while the numbers might be small, it's a sign that the creative is resonating and we're reaching the audience at the right time, at the right mindset. But for us, we are always, one of our clients, it's only brick and mortar location. So CTV is a big part because we can segment the audience, we can be very detailed, but also we need the mass reach. Because they're a national retailer, they are in also rural areas, so we need cable, we need the broadcast, sometimes we need out of home. So for us, it's really trying to reach the audience where they are throughout the day, so the brand stays top of mind. And for the clients that don't have a large budget, that don't allow for that, we try to be very mindful of their objectives and really choose the channels where we can optimize on the fly. For the loom where we can, we work with Walmart and we can see ROAS. It becomes a little easier just because we can make those optimizations on the fly, whereas, with the other clients that are only brick and mortar, it becomes a little harder because we need to wait a longer period of time to be able to optimize the campaign. But for us, we try to, have a broad media mix to reach the audience where they are. And again, I mentioned this before, but we really focus on the audience, and we're always revising the audience and always pulling syndicated audience. We have Omni, which is part of Omnicom, that we can look at, credit card data, so we can look into for the past 3 months, where is the audience, who's buying, is there a shift in the audience, which we noticed there was a shift in one of our clients' audience and saw more Hispanics. So, if we're not focused on Hispanics, we all should, because, in a few years, the multicultural audience is going to be pretty much 50-50, if not a little bit, higher. So we're always paying attention to that to make sure that we go back to the channel selection.
Let's talk about retail media for a little bit, because that's been a huge rise of the use of their data for targeting in digital video specifically. What ways are you guys leveraging retail media networks within your buys?
Yeah. So we started to explore a lot more with the Trade Desk and Walmart DSP, and we started to see, 47% ROAS for some of our acid reflux specific brands in that space. And what's interesting about that is what we've been able to see specifically driving in-store versus pickup, and where the delivery fits into that, and then cross-shopping and basket behaviors in there, and how we can really create that as an inflection point. What I've always found really interesting, though, with CPG in general is how marketers choose to then enable their sales team to then have conversations with those retailers to negotiate better end caps, to have better placement strategies, et cetera. And that doesn't always happen. I don't think that has ever really accelerated to the forefront as much as it should. As well as we've done a lot in the Amazon DSP space. That one's a little bit tougher to crack because you have third-party resellers that oftentimes are undercutting the manufacturers. And so how you get that cost per acquisition price point down in that land of economics has always been a challenge for us specifically, because those price points to be able to break even have always been a challenge. So we have not been able to successfully on the Amazon DSP side crack that, as well as if you're running Amazon Direct on a PPC model to specifically drive that cost per acquisition standpoint. Where I think that the explosion is going to reach its point of maturity, so to speak, is it's having its moment, and all the retailers are realizing that they have something with monetizing their data and really scaling that. But I think that the industry itself has a different way now of breaking down silos between manufacturers, suppliers, retailers, agencies, the promotional companies, you name it, everybody that's involved has to come together. And that's a little bit more challenging because many times, we're held to the side as the promotional companies are held to the side. And that's a little bit more complicated and nuanced to move to the speed to market of retail. So it's yet to be seen in terms of how the realization of the strategic landscape of that can actually scale at volume rather than just being a media placement execution.
What? Oh, go ahead, Vivi.
No, I was just going to say, we work with the Walmart DSP and we see positive results, but, what we discuss a lot is, yes, we have to support them because of their contracts, but we also need to be able to reach the audience outside of the environment, right? So where do we find the balance? And the Walmart DSP performs really well for us, but I think what we have to revisit as an industry, not just with the Walmart DSP, but DSPs in general. Melissa and I were talking about this yesterday, and I had similar conversations with other people. The DSP fees are astronomical. It's budget that could be going back into media. Mm-hmm. So how do we remedy that? We know that everybody needs to make money, but upwards of 30% in fees, that's very high. So how do we work together as an industry to lower those fees so more money can go into media, so we can sell more and justify larger budgets?
We've touched on kind of long form and short form content as part of this overall landscape. Like, do you guys think long form content still has a place in the industry? If so, where and when?
I think it does. We've been talking about that for one of our clients because we proposed a longer form content. The client said, why are we going long form when everybody's going short form? But I think there is. And Stephanie showed a 2-minute segment. We saw a couple of 2-minute segments. I think it was Thomas from MGM on Monday. There is a place. I think social, it's probably where we're going to see the higher response and engagement. And then we can get snippets in how do we continue that conversation somewhere else. But it is something we've been discussing because a longer segment allows you to tell a story. Mm-hmm. It allows you to emotionally connect with the audience. So as long as the environment is the right environment, I think is valid. It is something that we're trying to make the case. And TikTok is allowing now, they're testing the 30-minute video uploads. So if a big company like that is bringing back, there's something there, right? So I think it's really having the right content, served to the right audience on the right environment, and then we can use snippets, on other channels to continue that engagement on non-social environment.
Yeah, I think if you're a brand that wants to take them on a story and you have that provocative journey to take them on, I think it makes a lot of sense. For Visit Philadelphia, they were challenged with crime like every other major city, and they wanted to tell their story in a very different way and be known for something other than cheesesteaks and the Rocky statue. So we worked with NBC and their producers for the First Look show, and we created a really amazing 30-minute segment that was all about their wall art murals, that are #1 on TripAdvisor, their culinary scene. They have the most James Beard award-winning chefs as of last year. They have amazing street performers and music scene, and that really elevated the overall brand profile and sentiment to the destination. And they've been able, through that and this 360 play that they did with Peacock, and then having some immersive units and a social media giveaway on Hopper and Expedia, to not only beat their numbers for the year for the revenue forecast, but also lift their overall DMO site visitation as well. So I think that depending on where you want to go with it and what you have to say, and as long as you're mapping out those points of consideration that have unique experiences and they're done with a purposefulness intent, and the right positioning is done within the brief with the thoughtfulness behind it, and you're making sure that you have specific segments that are speaking to all different personas that are in there that you can evoke and elicit that experience, I think that it has its play.
One more question before we'll open it up to the audience. Of all of the things that we could do, right, that have come out, what's one that you're really excited to just leave behind in 2024?
I don't know if there's one that I want to leave behind, because baggy pants are back.
Wow, Vivi. Slow clap on that one.
I don't know. I think sometimes the creative team can find the right way to use, a unit that we may want to forget about.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, I love the QR code for LinkedIn that we've been using, a lot, but I still struggle with QR code. I wish more of the AR filter with Snapchat and bringing that into the digital world with programmatic out-of-home, or just out-of-home in general, was used more. I think it's used more in Europe specifically, but I still struggle with brands that are using QR codes successfully. It had its hype and it had its moment, and now it pops up every now and then with brands trying to use it successfully, but I'm over it. I just
Melissa, are you the type of person who still wants a physical menu at a restaurant too?
Yeah.
This checks out.
I expect it. I want it clean, and I want it to be new, and I want it to be fresh.
All right, any questions from the crowd?
Anything?
You all look beautiful.
I'm just curious, and I have to admit, I didn't catch the first part of your discussion, so if I repeat anything, but just when we're talking, as I talk with people in preparing for this and trying to find innovative video, when you mentioned long form, short form, but are you also looking at ways to maybe do things that creatively are sort of out of the box, or sort of, doing something that is maybe not so much about the brand, but it's more shocking or just going to jar their attention?
Yes, we are actually in discussions for one of our clients with the team to do some pretty crazy ideas for next year, just to drive engagement and really cut through the clutter. The channels would be social, and we're going to have CTV and whatnot, but more of an experiential, more of an event-driven strategy to really try to do something different that makes sense for that particular brand.
For most of our clients, they play it safe, but for Visit Philadelphia, which is strange for a DMO, they like to push the envelope. So last year, in partnership with CBS, they did the largest drag storytime reading right on the front lawn in front of the Capitol. And so that really surpassed all the Guinness Book of World Records for that, and did a real cut up across social media and the landscape of things. And they're not afraid to push the envelope and really want to make a stake in the ground in terms of they are a welcoming environment for all walks of life and all types of people that are there and have something to say, and are now doing panels for TED Democracy as far as making sure that they are in pursuit of a perfect union as well. So it's been interesting to see where we can take that specific client in terms of not only pushing tourism and destination in terms of just driving bookings and relevancy in that sort of realm, but also what newer forms of content and storyboarding that we can elicit from them.
Anyone else?
Oh, that got a question going.
No, hold on.
Andrea from Nexon. Just curious, and I think you touched upon this a little bit, but what would you like your clients to do more of or be more open to when looking into like 2025 or even Q4 right now, ways for them to like challenge themselves?
I would like for some of our clients to be more open to test and learn. So we can really do things differently and really, set budget aside like you do, which you're lucky, and just be a little bit more open to that. But we understand the challenges, like Melissa said, they need to, they have a board in a lot of cases that they need to respond to. But I think if I could ask, that would be one thing, and share more data with us. So we can be, again, more purposeful with what we do. We want to make, they're successful, we are successful, right? And that's what we tell our partners that we work with. If the client succeeds, we all succeed, and we can do more of this. So, more often than not, we'll ask them if they can share more data, and we understand sometimes it's not okay, but test and learn budgets and more data. Those are my, wish
Just small things.
bucket list for next year.
I would say more curiosity and being open to what we used to do, not dating myself, but having media days. I miss those opportunities where we would bring brands in the room with our partners and just having anything and everything stick against the wall and just having more of that open forefront dialogue rather than having the formal RFP of who, what, when, where. As much as I said earlier that I'm that nerd that loves the scientific method, I also love just the what if conversation and the inspirational conversations that can just come from a spur of the moment conversation, much of like the pleasure that I've had with Vivi and just meeting her over the past few days and just trading ideas that we've had for our two agencies. And I think that sometimes sitting behind a desk and just waiting for that brief to come, or just having the same status call conversations, going through the same things of asking for those assets that we would love to have or that data that we'd love to have, just keeps us in that reactive mode. And we're always in that wish mentality rather than just forget about all that. What do we want to do? Where do we want to go? And the more that we get into that realm, just like we are here in this room, and starting to evoke that more in our everyday lives, the more that we can get that. So maybe calling it Media Day is the wrong thing. Maybe there's just a stigma against that. But that's what I would love to get back to, that resurgence, really.
You're not excited about getting briefs?
No.
No?
I want like real conversations, because the briefs that we get are just, what my target audience is. I'm like, I do, but you've also expressed interest in dating apps, or you've also expressed interest in things that I would never think that you'd be interested in, like pets, and you're, this category. So help me understand where you're going, because there's a trigger in your brain, and we always talk about it. when you get a brief or you get an email, there's always an underlying question, and we're always there trying to figure out what that underlying question is. And I feel like the brief is just so question, answer, question, answer. We can't always read between the lines, and not many people are willing to get on the phone sometimes and talk through that. I want to have a conversation. I want to have a dialogue. Anyone can fill out question and answer, but there's so many goddamn surveys in the world. I just want to have a conversation.
I think we have to end on that. Any other questions? Awesome. Melissa, Vivi, thank you guys so much.
Yeah.